Hi there viewers, I'm Leo Fuego, and I'm here to tell you about the lore of a recent horror game, Still Wakes the Deep. As a side note, I haven't made a have you played video because I'm thinking of making some ambitious decisions for the future of this channel. And so as an FYI, there are major spoilers, as always when it comes to these lore videos. But let's return to the topic you're here for. In Still Wakes the Deep, you play as Cameron McCleary, or as everyone calls him, Kaz, a Scotsman with an amazing accent, married to Suze, and the two of you have two lovely children. But you and Suze had a fight over you going to this oil rig called the Beria to work for the next few weeks, but the only reason you got this job because your best friend Roy gave the boss man Rennick a good word to convince him to let you work on the rig because you know your way around electronics, and the cash sounded promising. But if you remember what I said before, you'd know that in horror games, the protagonist always has an interesting backstory. And you face a lot of monsters and near-death experiences, and in a number of horror games, you typically don't make it back to your family. But all that stuff's not as exciting as lore. So the reason Cass is really here is because he's running from the police back in the mainland because you beat a man named Billy Chamberlain, a man who knew your wife from high school and is jealous of you and the kids you have. You beat Billy to the point that he had to be hospitalized, and now Billy wants to press charges on you. Kaz has been known to have a temper after having a couple of drinks, and that leads him to get in some trouble and cause arguments between you and Suze. So in an attempt to let the heat cool off after what you did to Billy, your mate Roy got you a job in the Beria, so both Billy and the police will hopefully leave you alone and hopefully forget about you. Or in the worst case scenario, they come after you because you ran and you'd be thrown in jail. But because you ran away to the Beria, you missed out on the events of the girl's life, and Suze threatens to leave you to take the kids if you didn't come home to face the music. But Cass doesn't get the message of this ultimatum until Christmas Day, the day where he also learns the police found him and sent a message to the boss, Rennick, getting you fired. But the gift giving wasn't done yet. This would also be the day where the drill struck something unexplainable, and your co-workers on the Beria were either turned into grotesque monsters or unalive by these particular monsters, partially conscious and in complete agony, fed with memories of their lives either to ease their pain or make them suffer more. Your newfound friends cry and scream for someone to help them, at the same time hell-bent on unaliving anyone they see. Some unable to control their actions, others deliberately hunting you. Try as you might, face death itself and become the sole survivor because you want to see your family again, but whatever this strange stuff is that turns people into monsters, you don't want it touching others or reaching the mainland. In an act of heroism, you sacrificed yourself to save the people on the mainland, blowing up the rig even though it meant never seeing your wife and kids again. Well, that's the lore part of the game. Well, let me answer some questions you may have, like how long Cass was on the rig, was this his first day, what was the stuff that turned people into monsters, and how come the rig didn't hit the monsters before if oil rigs just sit in one place in the ocean? Well, first, we know that Cass had been in the Beria for some time, long enough to make some friends and an enemy, and he was even in a dart tournament against the other crewmates. He even knew just about everyone's name. So while we don't know exactly how long Cass has been on the Beria, we definitely know he had some time to be comfortable at the rig. And the events of the game, it was his last day there. So as for the stuff that turned people into monsters, we learned from Finley, one of our crewmates, that one of the other crew members was hit with some strange oil from the initial explosion from the drill, and it made him aggressive and he tried to attack her, and ultimately it distorted his body to the point to become a monster. Even the boss, Rennick, announced that everyone should stay away from the stuff on the Beria. And for the third question, if this rig is in the same place, how come it didn't hit the monster oil before? Well, that's because not all oil rigs are stationary. It moves from place to place by being pulled by boats. In this game, at some point, we're told to go down to the pontoons to pump the water out before the rig sank. That means the Beria was a oil rig that moves from place to place looking for oil, and so that means that it moved to a random spot to dig for oil and found the unlucky spot where the monster oil is located. But there was one person at fault here for the whole event that took place on this rig, the boss man Rennick himself. Rennick is the owner of this rig. He bought all the parts of the rig and everything on it, but that man was a cheapskate. He paid for the cheapest of everything so he can run the most profitable business without having to cut corners in safety, quality equipment, and damn near everything. He doesn't even care for his workers after the explosion that started everything. He said everyone to get back to work even though some people had just unalived from the blast. The Beria shouldn't have blown up if there was proper fail-safes. The explosion on the rig was called a blowout, and all proper rigs should have a blowout preventer that stops intense oil pressure or gas explosions from blowing up the rig to smithereens, just like what happened in the game. I'm unsure if the blowout preventer was there, or if there even was one that was any good. One man is to blame for every death in Siberia, and it's the self-proclaimed king himself, the cheapskate boss man, Davy Rennick. If he had spent more money on quality equipment and didn't try to milk every penny he could, there's a chance that he and everyone else on the rig would be alive. Well, the viewers, there is a lore and a bit of science to Still Wakes the Deep, and with that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching.